Imagine yourself alone in a pitch-black forest at night. Everything is cloaked in darkness. Suddenly, a deer shows up, staring into your soul. But it's not an ordinary deer. Between its antlers, a radiant cross glows. This enigmatic creature stares directly at you. What would your reaction be in that split second? Would you try and run away? Perhaps you would try to pray. What I've just described is the account of Saint Hubert's vision, a medieval legend that had inspired numerous artists throughout history. Yet, one particular artist depicted this scene in the most chilling manner imaginable. Franz von Stuck was exceptional in his ability to convey that sensation of dreaming about something incomprehensible, something that lingers in your mind for eternity. The artwork was produced in 1890, and frankly, had Stuck not referenced it in the title, you might never guess this eerie tableau was associated with a religious narrative. It's said that before his sainthood, Hubert was merely a man with a passion for hunting, not for sport, but as a lifelong devotion. He was a 7th century nobleman, capable of vanishing into the wilderness for days, merely for the thrill of pursuing deer. On one Good Friday, he decided to hunt, disregarding the Mass and all Christian customs of such a significant day. Deep within the woods, he encountered a deer, but this deer possessed a glowing cross between its antlers, literally a cross that radiated light from a distance. According to the tales of the era, the deer gazed at him and proclaimed, "Hubert, if you do not turn to the Lord and lead a righteous life, you shall go to hell." Just imagine for a moment being isolated in the woods and suddenly receiving a message that profound. In contemporary times, we might label it a hallucination or a mystical encounter. Yet, for the Christian tradition of that time, it was an epiphany. This vision altered Hubert's life. He abandoned hunting, renounced his titles, and became a priest. Eventually, he was canonized and is now recognized as the patron saint of hunters. By then, the deer adorned with the cross had emerged as one of the most potent symbols in medieval Christian art, embodying the divine call, redemption, and the manifestation of the sacred into everyday life. However, in symbolist art, such as that of Franz von Stuck, this imagery is not presented solely for its religious significance, but rather for the emotions it generates. It captures that instant when reality fractures open and something transcendent breaches the world. This scene might resemble something from a nightmare or a surreal vision, yet it encompasses a profound meaning. It feels as though the artist succeeded in seizing that exact moment when a soul is torn apart, the interval preceding faith and the moment afterward. When we juxtapose this painting with other notable interpretations of the same legend, like that of Rubens, the contrast is remarkable. In Rubens' rendition, everything seems more narrative-oriented. We observe a landscape, daylight, and animals in the backdrop, with Saint Hubert kneeling before the deer that has a diminutive cross between its antlers. It's almost indistinguishable, more symbolic than anything. Conversely, Franz von Stuck eliminates all ornamental elements. The background is shrouded in such darkness that, depending on the lighting, it's nearly impossible to discern whether there's a forest at all. All secondary details are stripped away, and the cross stands out colossal and glowing as if it were the sole visual reference in the entire composition. The potency of this painting lies in how the artist places us in the hunter's role. We do not see Saint Hubert from behind or in profile. Instead, it's you confronting the apparition. The question I asked at the beginning of this video isn't really coming from me. That's the meaning of this painting. It compels us to face an apparition like this and consider how we would respond if it were real. It's essential to acknowledge that Franz von Stuck was not a typical painter. He was not focused on depicting reality as it was. His artwork was symbolic and psychological. He was captivated by visions, anxieties, and aspirations. In fact, when he crafted the vision of Saint Hubert in 1890, he was deeply engaged in a movement that epitomized precisely that: German symbolism. We won't delve deeply into his life or into symbolism itself. However, to fully grasp this painting, we need to recognize that during this period, many European artists, not just in Germany but across France and Belgium, had grown weary of art that merely displayed life as it is. They aimed to transcend that. They sought to portray the unseen. Thus, they began creating images filled with symbols, dark atmospheres, and mythological or religious figures, all rich in significance. Artists like Goya had investigated the grotesque and the irrational from a societal standpoint. In contrast, Stuck approached it through the lens of symbolism. And that's exactly what we see here. Stuck didn't depict the saint's story as a religious scene, but rather as an intimate experience between man and the divine. To achieve this, he employed all the resources symbolism had to offer: darkness, silence, and above all, the feeling that what you're witnessing doesn't entirely belong to this realm. The original artwork, The Vision of Street Hubert, is held at Villa Stuck in Munich, and this isn't merely any museum. If you ever find yourself in the area, I highly recommend a visit, because the villa was actually the residence of Franz von Stuck himself. He designed, adorned, and transformed it into his ultimate artistic endeavor. Today, many of his most significant pieces are preserved there. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments on today's painting, The Vision of St. Hubert.